Hi, and welcome to the Changing Perspectives podcast, the show where we discuss a variety of topics, including grief, parenting, pop culture, and relationships. Join us and explore a number of changing perspectives. We're your hosts, Jenni and Josh Brennan. Hey, Jenni.
Hello.
What's happening?
Just
I know.
lots of stuff.
Lots of stuff.
Busy.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 63. We hope you so much
Wow.
enjoyed. I can't talk today.
Wow.
We hope you really enjoyed the Get Burly episode featuring Mr. Michael Karen that was released a few days ago. So our last episode 62. If you have not checked that episode out, please do so. You will not be disappointed. So how are you today on day whatever it is of quarantine and staying inside?
I'm an introvert, and so I'm totally kind of cool with being home. I'm a homebody as well. I miss seeing my friends. I like to see friends on the weekends, but I like being home. And now that our home office is set up more in a sort of a good place,
right?
I'm feeling much more comfortable. I'm also feeling kind of more organized. Took some time for myself this weekend. Yeah. I have a very busy week again, but I'm feeling hopeful. And last week I worked out 4 times.
Nice.
And for the first time since my surgeries in October. So what's that, 5 months? So was able to work out not just once, but 4 times.
That's
and
huge.
Was really great with being on track with my food. Allowed myself to have a sort of not a cheat day, but a day yesterday where I didn't really worry about it. And am sort of back on track. So I feel like I've fallen into a nice sort of COVID-19 rhythm.
Routine, maybe.
Routine. But it was
I was going to say, if you weren't introvert, if you were an extrovert, how do you think those people are going
seeing
through
as
the world?
I'm busier than I've ever been as a psychotherapist, lots of people are struggling with it, and even introverts are struggling with it.
Right.
And it's hard. It's also easier today because the sun is shining. Last week it rained, I think 4 of the 5 work days, and that was hard. It also snowed one of those days.
I don't know how I felt about that with the weather last week.
Oh, the weather was awful.
Well, whether or not I didn't mind it because of the quarantining stuff, or did it make it worse? I think I leaned on the side of it. It totally made it worse. I'd much rather have it be bright and beautiful out.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
It's funny. So I'm literally just getting a text from someone, a friend.
Hot off the presses text.
About exactly what I thought we should talk about today.
Oh, nice.
So, and I have literally 19 minutes because I have another patient in 20 minutes.
So is this
my
a
break.
pint size, or is this going to be?
No, I think we're going to have to take a break
this
and record. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Probably longer than a 19-minute episode.
Yeah.
But very much sort of at the forefront of my brain. And we were just recording the intro and outro for the last episode we released. So everything's set up. So I said, let's just start the next episode. And
You
so
just
usually
love breaking on that fourth wall, don't you?
Usually is that a bad
no, it's
fourth
fine.
wall to listen?
It's
I'm
just
choosing to
funny.
do this over
Yeah.
eating this banana. I haven't eaten lunch. I'm going to work out after my next session.
Banana,
I know it wasn't ready. So listen, we are on week. What week are we on?
I have no idea.
I think that this is the 4th week at home for our kids. I think
so.
They had
right.
3 weeks at home. The first week at home, I didn't make them do anything. Social worker allowed them, me, the social worker, thought it was really important for them to feel their feelings, be really sad, be mad, whatever they were, because their life came to a screeching halt, and all of their, they're used to having 8 games a week and 5 practices a week and being out of the house for our oldest from like 7 a.m. some nights till 9:30 p.m. And that all came to a screeching halt. So I let them feel their feelings. And then over the next 2 weeks, I let them, I required some work from them for school. The schools were sending us 37 emails a day about suggested activities. Nothing was really mandatory. We had a couple Zoom meetings for the youngest.
Right.
And then the next week I required a little bit more from them. And then officially this week marks the start of work being required by the schools. So, and I think that seems to be pretty standard for Massachusetts. This is the week that school distance learning is being required. And so a lot of parents are freaking out, us included,
right?
Because we're working full time. I'm working full time from home. I'm teaching a class online, which takes up a big portion of my time. And then I'm seeing anywhere from 30 to 40-ish patients a week back to back. And so I'm leaving 10 minutes between sessions, and that's just enough time to sort of run out of the home office, put a dog outside, throw dishes in the dishwasher, check and make sure kids are breathing, and remind them to like eat and brush their teeth. Not enough time to like sit down with them for their school. And our district is requiring work, but providing a suggestion that kids in the elementary level, so 5th grade and under, should be doing 2 hours a day of schoolwork, and kids in the middle school level should be doing 2.5 hours a day of schoolwork.
Right.
So this is the first week. So I sort of got us organized, and I feel organized. But I just posted a tool that I'm using for our oldest online just to share as a resource. And then a friend just texted me and said, I'm so overwhelmed. How did you do that? I might need to do one for my elementary school. Because if you're a parent who's not a teacher and has not been homeschooling your kid, this is really hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're working or not working. Whatever your situation is, if you are now having to manage a child's distance learning or multiple children's distance learning, this is probably pretty overwhelming.
Yeah.
Not what you went to school for, not what you thought you would be doing with your life. Your role is to be your kid's parent, and I think that is still really, really, really important for people to hear. And I love our teachers and I love our education system. I think as parents, we know our kids best when it comes to mental health. And if it's feeling like too much for your kids, push back, communicate with the teachers, communicate with the district, be flexible. Someone else just messaged me that their child, who's the same age as Jacob, they're requiring 4 hours a day of work.
That's too much.
It's too much.
At home in this environment with no teacher present, that's way too much.
And, the feedback that I've been having from clinicians who are moving to online therapy for the first time, college professors who are moving to online platforms for the first time, and patients who are moving to online platforms is that this video stuff is way more exhausting than in person.
Yeah.
There's something about it that requires increased sort of attention or focus. I don't know what it is, but it seems to be pretty common. A pretty common feeling is that this takes more energy. And so if we're also asking kids to do that, we have to expect that it's going to take more from them. And they don't get the breaks that they have at school. They don't get to be with their friends. They don't get to look across their room and see their friend and smile.
Right.
They look across the room and see, well, in our case, nope, nothing. Maybe their sibling.
Well, and I feel like in the school day, they have built-in breathing points, like breaks, where they get to either go outside or even just transition from one activity to the next quickly. I mean, the attention span, especially for the younger children, is what it is. It's tiny. And if you've got a requirement of 3 to 4 hours a day
For one kid.
for one child, not to mention, I mean, and I got to shout out, I got to have to recognize the struggles of those teachers that also have children.
Right.
So they're required not only to teach and work and provide all this content for their students, but also they have to do the same thing for the children. They probably don't teach them. They're probably not in the same district, so they're dealing with two different district sets of requirements.
I feel like you're shouting right now. Are you shouting?
I don't know.
Please don't shout.
Am I? Is this better?
And also those teachers are not teachers who said, I want to be an online teacher at the elementary level. They're probably teachers who went into the career of teaching because they liked being in that environment where it's different every day. You're not sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day. You're sort of filtering through different kids or different materials, and so they're struggling as well. So I think it's important. I don't know, maybe the episode is done. My message is
I don't think so.
that it's okay to say no. It's okay to be flexible. The schools are sending, in most cases or in many cases, sort of guidance. Basically, we need to show that we're giving kids stuff to do, and we need to make sure that kids are being accounted for. Teachers are seeing kids or in some way sort of checking the pulse of every kid at some point, and that the kids are going to be able to sort of pass on to the next level after all this is done.
Right.
you know your kids best, and you know yourself best, and you know your family best. And if requiring your child to sit at the table for 4 hours a day is going to reduce your child to tears and you to tears and like make everyone pull their hair out, don't do it.
Right.
Don't do it. Like, figure out what's going to work for you guys. So what happened for us yesterday is, in preparing the weekly schedule, there is not a Zoom meeting for our youngest, but there may be. And it came to light that like he is really uncomfortable with the Zoom format. And why would we expect him to be comfortable with it? Like, you and I are comfortable with it. I mean, I'm comfortable. I've been using Zoom for years as the teaching platform for one of my schools. I was using a different platform before. I remember transitioning to Zoom, and it is overwhelming. It is a lot. So why would we expect it to just be easy for a kid? And so he started, well, I won't give away all his personal information, but he was struggling with that. And
Very much,
we tried to figure out a way that we could be flexible around the requirements around him for schooling. And you know what we came up with is he is using Google Slides for the first time ever. And instead of potentially doing a Zoom meeting this week, at least, we are letting him focus on creating this presentation for us about Star Wars and learning how to use Google Slides.
Yes.
I feel like that's a pretty real world situation. And maybe when the Zoom meeting is scheduled, maybe he will go. I think he can only do it if you or I are able to sit there with him. But the other two Zoom sessions that he's had, I've had patience, and or you've been out of the house or on a conference call. So we've been working. And so he's had to do it by himself without any support. So if teachers aren't able to sort of schedule those things ahead of time, families just have to do the best they can. So our best, what we came up with, and the teacher might really disapprove. And quite honestly, I love the teacher. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care, because he just came into our office and is super excited that he has now decided that he's doing 3 separate presentations for us about Star Wars. He's figured out how to.
It to you tonight.
He wants to present it to me tonight. He's figured out how to add animation and pictures and all this stuff. He's now more proficient in Google Slides than I am. And that motivated him. So our requirement was, you have to do the school stuff, some of the school stuff that is sent to you for this week, but let's have you do something that's meaningful to you, that is engaging to you. And I want to encourage parents out there to think out of the box, to not be not allow yourself to feel so pressured that you have to do everything the school is sending you, that you have to do it the way the school is sending it to you, and that you have to sort of suddenly become homeschool parents. You're not. This is not homeschooling. This is trying to support some sort of educational content and experience for our kids in a crisis. This is a crisis. Right. Our job is really to keep our kids feeling safe and secure as much as possible, and to continue to have some sort of learning infused, some sort of focus on education. Maybe all that is for some kids is a slide deck or reading a book. I would bet all the money in the world that on the other side of this thing that we're going through, what's going to matter most is how we took care of our children's mental health, not how many hours a day we required them to attend school.
Yes, absolutely. I love the outside the box thinking, and really framing, being honest with yourself about what you can accomplish, right?
And giving yourself permission to set that expectation really appropriately. And maybe what you're doing with your kids, and maybe what you guys are able to do or willing to do this week, the week of April 6th, is going to be different than what you're able to do the week of June 1st, if we're still doing this then, or even the week of April 30th. Like, things can change, but doing your best right now doesn't mean that you're doing the best. You don't have to do the best. You don't have to do every single thing that the school sends you. Listen, I think it's different if you're a high schooler, if you're a child who's not getting a pass-fail, you're getting sort of grades. That's different, and it's a different conversation, but I think the elements of the conversation are the same.
Right.
You know, you do what you can do, and maybe in those situations, a student who is typically an A-level student needs to be okay with being a B-level student, if that's going to manage their mental health better, you know, to sort of set the expectation that if I were going to school, if I were taking the bus
Right.
every day or having my normal routine, I could totally rock an A in this AP calc class. But working from home, not being able to see my friends, not being able to do my work, not being able to have control and freedom, the best I'm going to be able to do right now is a B. That's okay. I think
Right,
that,
right.
that it's really important that we have these conversations at all levels and find a way to just figure out and give ourselves permission as families to do what works for us and for
Right,
our
right.
kids, not what works for the school district. And I'm not knocking school districts or teachers at all. I'm instead saying what they're doing is great. I'm very thankful for what they're doing. We also have to do our job as parents
right.
and take care of our kids' emotional and mental health and mental well-being. And we have to take care of our own as well. So if we're working from home or we're going through the crisis ourselves and feeling our own feelings, we can't put this pressure on ourselves to suddenly be wonderful homeschool teachers either.
Right. I wanted to talk about what my morning today looked like.
Should we take a break though?
Do you need to take a break?
Well, I have a patient in 5 minutes, so
Okay.
this sounds like it might be a good place
Yeah.
to break.
Let's take a break.
And then we can sort of walk through what your morning looked like and
Yeah.
maybe some of the tools that we're using for
Yeah.
this week
Sounds good.
to share resources. Okay.
All right, everybody. We'll be back.
All right. Bye.
Hey, everybody. Jenny and I want to tell you guys about Lash Binder.
Yes. Lash Binder was created by celebrity makeup artist and host of the Clean Beauty podcast, Cassandra McClure.
Lash Binder is a lash application tool and method that has changed the lash game forever. Lash Binder makes lash application easier, faster, and even safer than ever before.
And with each Lash Binder sold, Lash Binder will donate one to a cancer patient who has lost her lashes due to chemotherapy. How amazing is that?
That's super amazing.
Lash Binder is available on Amazon and at select boutiques nationwide.
And you can also visit lashbinder.com. And just for our awesome listeners, you can enter the discount code Changing Perspectives at checkout for $5 off your entire order.
That's also super amazing.
Yes, it is. Visit lashbinder.com, everybody. Lashbinder is number one because anyone can achieve perfect lashes in seconds every time. Hey, everybody, we are back. Welcome back from the break, Jenny.
Hi.
All right, so
It was a multi-day break.
You
I'm
like to
breaking the
just
fourth
break
wall.
down that
Because
fourth
I'm very
wall.
transparent and
Yeah.
authentic. Yeah.
So we took a break, and then it took us a few days to get back in the studio for the second half of this
Mhm.
episode, which is fine. So right before the break, I was gonna share what my morning was like, which actually ended up being the other morning, but that's okay. About format we had set up for our boys, with when to do their schoolwork and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Are you playing Candy Crush or something? Or
No, I'm
what's going on?
texting. I'm
You
multitasking.
told
Relax.
me I'm ready.
I am ready.
To hit the record button, but you're
And
in
I'm
your
here.
phone.
I'm listening.
What are you doing?
I'm sending a funny meme to someone.
Okay.
It's a funny one, but we can't say it on air.
No. That is pretty funny, actually.
See, you break the fourth wall too.
I do.
Mhm.
I do because you're in your phone and I'm looking at you.
Sorry.
Okay.
We have visitors that are dropping off Easter baskets at the end of our driveway, and I'm just making sure that they're going to
Easter bunny?
text us. Nope.
No.
Text us when they're coming so we know.
Okay. So anyway, my morning, and actually
And
how
sending funny memes. But
how all of the mornings have been for this week, whatever it is.
Mhm.
We set up this sort of structured time where we're all going to sit down. Were you when you were here with them this week? Did you sit at the table with them?
yeah, I think this was my idea that
It
we
was your
needed
idea.
we needed to carve out, because our schedule for our family is such that every day is different, and some days you're sort of the primary parent because you're here and you get to sort of like work from the living room or the kitchen, and you've got
Right,
conference
right.
calls and stuff like that. And other days there is no primary parent because you're at your work and
Right.
I'm seeing patients. So I said we needed to come up with a plan for at least 1 hour a day where he just pulled the microphone away from me and I followed it.
Yeah. What did I tell you? You're going to be off the mic. a
No,
little
but
bit.
I hear myself and it sounds okay.
Yeah, but trust me.
Okay.
That was funny.
For like for 64 episodes, you've been like, Jenny, get up on the mic, get up on the
I know,
mic. And now
something
today you're like,
listen,
don't be up on the mic.
I think we talked about this at the first part of the episode, but we had Mikey Karen, our buddy, on for last episode, and we set up a remote using Zencaster, which I recommend if you're a podcaster. But it kind of messed with the mic settings, and now I'm trying to figure out how to get them back together. But anyway,
Okay.
go ahead. I love how
So
you followed the microphone.
I'm well trained. So I decided and suggested that we needed to, Monday through Friday, carve out at least an hour where whoever was the primary parent would sit at the kitchen table with the boys for
Yes.
at least an hour for their schoolwork. And then the second hour to 90 minutes, if we're not available to continue sitting with them, would be on their own, like reading or
Right,
finishing
right.
an assignment that they don't need sort of help for. So you and I looked at our schedule for last week. We haven't done it for this week yet. Although I think what we've been doing is if you're working, I'm just assuming I'm the one doing it, and I'm figuring out a time in between
Yeah.
sessions, or like I'm moving people around
Before your
or
sessions
before
get
my
started
sessions
for the day.
start. And if you're home, you're doing it. And if I'm available too, I sit with you guys. That hasn't happened yet. But
Yeah.
why was I saying all of this? So we have structured school time. And so
Yes,
we
and
actually, we're like, school starts at 10, and tell the boys that like they can do what they want in the morning. One of them might sleep right until then. One of them might get up and be in their bed on their phone,
For the most part, they wanted like an hour lead time before.
which is
they-
pretty similar to how
Yeah.
our school day used to go. They would get up early and have some sort of downtime. So one of them will like eat breakfast at school, at quote unquote school, and the other one will do a little bit of schoolwork and then take like a snack break to eat breakfast. So that's
Right,
how it
right.
worked this week. This was the first official week that we kind
And
of did that. The other weeks we had said, here's your list of stuff you have to do. Get it done however and whenever you want. But now that we know this is going on longer, I felt for our family, and I wonder for a lot of families, it would work better if there was more structure. And I think it did work really well.
Mhm.
Now that we've had a complete week, I think it worked really well. They fell into a rhythm. We were able to sort of multitask. Like I was doing billing and charting and documentation. So I was doing some work while they would work independently for a little bit. And then, our youngest would be like, okay, what do I do next? And we'd say, here are the things that you can choose from. And our oldest would say, I'm done. And we'd say, nope, let me look. Oh, look, you missed stuff.
The biggest difference between this week and the previous weeks was a lot less prodding and like negotiation to get them to actually do the work. I feel like it was a lot like there was a lot of intrinsic self like motivation. It didn't take a lot of reminding once with it, it's time for school, and then they just went.
Okay, well,
went into it.
here's the communication breakdown between you and I, is that it sounds like you gave our youngest complete. Are you taking a picture of me?
Yeah.
I don't want a picture of me right now.
You look really good though.
Okay, I can't.
You look
I
very,
can't
very
talk.
beautiful this morning.
Oh, thank you.
Did your makeup for?
We
our
have a
episode.
date.
We
You
do have a
invited me on a
an
date this
at-home date.
afternoon. I don't know what we're doing
You know
at
what?
home.
Next episode 64 will be maybe if it's even a pint size, but we can talk about our at-home date.
Oh, okay.
That'll be the next episode.
Weird.
Maybe. I don't
Okay.
know.
All right.
We'll see. Go
What was
ahead.
I
I'm still
saying?
going to take a picture with you.
What was I saying though?
I
Our
handled the
communication.
youngest
So
one
it sounds
differently.
like you feel like there was less prodding and negotiation because it sounds like you let him do whatever he wanted to do. And we found out last night or maybe the night before that you didn't have him do
So-
any social studies or science the 2 days that you had them. So of course it seemed like less prodding because you were like, just do something.
No, that's not true.
So true.
Not true. I will say.
True news.
I will say it is more challenging to be in it with them, depending on what I'm doing. So on the last,
Sure. You were on a conference
I
call.
was on a conference call
Mhm.
the last time.
But you shouldn't have scheduled your
first
school
time.
time during a conference call.
So it's going to take some collaboration with them because they requested that time, and I told them I'm going to be on a conference call,
Okay.
but because I had blocked off different time for them that day, but they didn't want that.
So then if that's the time they prefer, you're going to have to maybe print out some stuff
Right,
or
right.
something like this.
But I guess my point was, yeah, it's still, he grumbled a little bit on a couple of the assignments. I'm like, okay, now it's time for math, and he was like, but he was there. He was there, awake with the laptop, his laptop ready to go.
I agree. Both of
That- I
them
guess
all
that's what
days.
I'm really talking about.
No one was late for school this week. No one went to the nurse's office. Nobody
No.
went to the bathroom and stayed in the bathroom excessive, like all the things that kids would do at school to avoid.
Right.
No one did that. You're right. They were truly engaged for the whole
Yeah.
time. And then some, then when on my days that I did it, then when I left to sort of go do patient sessions, they continued on doing their stuff. And our
Yeah.
youngest did like a Star Wars, a 3-deck slide presentation on Star Wars for me.
We talked about that in the first part.
I don't remember if we talked about
I
that.
want to talk about it again because I want to talk about how great it was for him to have a subject like the content.
Should we be spraying our trees with some sort of thing right now, like our neighbor is doing?
Wow,
Sorry, I
you're
got really distracted.
Completely derailed
Sorry.
that discussion. What are you talking about?
John is
See,
spraying something
all right,
on his trees.
Changing perspectives, fans.
All right.
This is what happened. So I came into the studio and set everything up, and I set up the diffuser and the lights on. I set up the computer. I was doing some sound testing with associate producer Jacob, and I had drawn the blinds, the shades, so you couldn't look outside. And then I went to do something, get a cup of coffee, and I came back, and Jenny had opened up the blinds.
Yeah, I
Now
like to look
she's
outside.
distracted by
Sorry.
what she's seeing outside.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay. So what I was saying was, let me go. I will come back to the PowerPoint thing or the Google Slides.
No,
thing in a
you're
second.
doing the weird thing with the hold of the mic again.
I
You
know. Let
stop.
me-
Put your hand down.
So his,
You're still doing it.
just ignore it. All
You
right.
can't.
Just ignore it. So my morning and many of the mornings this week, I really actually enjoyed it a lot.
I did too.
It was so much better than it has been. We set aside those 2 hours where we're together. Like at one point, like I'm on my laptop, they're on their laptops, and they've got their assignments and everything, and we're all working. We all have a cup of coffee or whatever we're drinking, and it was really good, and I feel like we can sustain it. It's like this week gave me hope that we can get through this, and the boys will still have learning and enrichment, and they're not going to be, going back to school whenever next year, like, completely behind. I think that this was really a good week to, remind us that this is doable. Even though everybody's situation is different, ours is completely different. You're 100%. We talked about this before. You are 100% at home, but you cannot stop a session. You're seeing patients. You can't.
Mhm.
You have to. It's almost like you're not here when you're
Mhm.
here, and that's just because you're seeing patients.
And I'm really lucky
sensitive,
that I'm able
right.
to do that. That our boys are old enough to sort of
Yes,
take
super
care of
lucky,
themselves during
super
that.
lucky.
And I'm trying to keep my sessions to 45 minutes and make sure that I'm checking in with them in between that.
And I'm really in a hybrid situation where for about 24 hours a week, I'm in the office working on the front
It's like
lines
more than
in
that.
the organ and tissue donation field,
Mhm.
at least 24 hours. And then I'm home. I'm working from home the rest of the time.
Every
so
single day,
every single day. Yeah.
all day, all night.
And this is really, I feel like this week it was good, and I felt fortunate, and I actually enjoyed the time with them. And I want to say at the end of the week, it was yesterday. This wasn't even. This is completely unprovoked. I didn't ask for this. We weren't even talking about it. Jacob came in our bedroom. I think I was getting ready to work. I was getting dressed to go run or work out or something. And he came in and he said, "Dad," I was like, "Hey, what's up? Thanks for helping with school this week." And I was
Isn't
like,
that
"What?"
nice? Yeah.
He's like, "Thanks for helping with school this week." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, man. You're welcome." And that was huge. Compared to where he was 2 weeks ago, Jenny.
Well, I think our kids
Successes.
are. So I think this is sort of the takeaway, right, for everybody, is that this is our reality. For some of you in some states, this is your reality for the rest of the school year.
Yeah.
Like school's out. And
I think we're close here in New England.
I think, Yeah, I think there's going to be for sure more states, perhaps including our own, that don't go back. And so this is your reality for another 2 months or so. What, 12 weeks, maybe even. Um, and you have to figure out what's going to work for your family. And the
Right.
messaging from our district has been work is mandatory. Some work, some level of engagement is mandatory. Teachers need to make sure that you're being engaged in some way.
Yes.
We're not grading anything. There's nothing really required. But here's our recommendation: 2 hours a day for elementary, 2.5 for middle school. I forget what it is for high school because we don't have high
Yeah.
school. So those are the parameters. Then now each family has to figure out what works for them. And maybe what works this week is not going to work next week, because some families, we're really privileged, you and I.
Yes. Super
We
lucky.
we haven't lost our jobs. We are able to continue to work. We are in a situation where our kids are old enough that they can take care of themselves,
Yes.
and we can work from home. So our exposure, my exposure is really low, which is good because of
And I
my
don't have-
asthma and respiratory
I
issues.
obviously don't have direct patient contact, so
Right.
I'm lucky as well.
You have dead patient contact, no?
But not as
Not a
as
lot.
part of my normal job. No.
Deceased contact with deceased people. Sorry, it's Saturday. Where was I going with this? So we're really privileged. Other people, and we only have 2 kids. Other people have multiple kids,
Yes.
younger kids. Like, I can't imagine. Can you think about trying to do this 6 years ago? Like
No.
when we first moved into this house,
No.
or when we were living in our last house with kids of that age. Like, even if we had the same jobs, being able to having to sort of do kindergarten or first grade work with them,
I know.
and it would be really hard. So I think you and I have to acknowledge that we are privileged and really lucky.
Yes.
And even with all of that privilege, it's still really hard for us. What was really a profound moment for me this past week is when I finally took a few minutes to compose an email to our youngest teachers
Yes.
that basically was kind of we're alive, but also kind of screw you in a way, like in a professional kind of way. I
What
feel
did
like
you just recommend?
I was honest. I
Oh,
was
know,
like,
I know.
here is, well, I don't know if they listen. Maybe they listen. I think
Hopefully they listen.
teachers are probably the hardest.
We have a lot of teachers who listen, though.
So
just in
they're
general, right?
probably the hardest hit group, one of the hardest hit groups, because especially if they have kids of their own. It would have been nice prior to 5 weeks of the kids being out. Well, how long have they been out of school? 4 weeks, 3 weeks?
I think so, yeah.
It would have been nice if the 2 teachers had reached out to their 40 kids individually at some point, because they hadn't.
Yeah.
And someone said to me online, but it's parents' responsibilities. The teachers are worried about your kids, so parents should be reaching out to teachers to let them know that kids are okay and that families are okay. And I was like,
I don't
but
have
we're
time
not
for that.
okay.
No.
We're not okay. And if you're judging whether or not a family's okay based on whether or not they do 30 minutes of iReady math work, that's a poor representation
Yes.
of it, because we're going to get that done. But in telling you we're not okay, it would have been nice for the teacher to have reached out directly, not in a mass email, but hey, Jenny, do you have Jacob's
Right.
text or phone number or email, or can you give him this personal message?
Right.
One of them did send a personal letter this week, a little card, which I thought was really nice. Would have been nicer to have that earlier. I am criticizing, and maybe that's coming across cold, but I think it's really important that our kids feel acknowledged and important to their teachers
Right.
to help with that engagement
100%
piece. So
agree.
prior to that letter being sent, or us receiving that letter, I sent an email to the teachers saying, here's the deal. This is our family situation. This is our work situation. This is what we've set up. Turns out Zoom meetings are really kind of anxiety provoking for our kiddo. And every time you schedule one, which is with 1 day's notice, it's conflicting with something for us. So we'll try to make it if we're available, but if we're not available, we're not making it a priority. And I said, we're really focusing on process, not product right now. So if he doesn't want to do the slide deck on an abandoned fort and would rather do one on Star Wars, that's what we're embracing right now. So at least he's still being engaged in all of the main content areas in some way, for an
Right.
extended period of time each day. And both teachers wrote back really supportive emails, and I don't want to say gave us permission, but kind of gave us permission.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And basically reinforced that, like, that is totally fine. Thank you for communicating that with us. If you want to share, if he wants really long, thoughtful responses. So my long-winded sort of spiel here is, if you haven't communicated directly with your children's teachers about your family's situation and what you're struggling with and where your stress points are,
Yep.
do it. Let them know. That we're alive, we're hearing everything, we're getting everything. Here's what we're doing right now to address it. Because that was really, it was a powerful experience for me to share all of that, and a really powerful experience to hear it.
Definitely made me feel better. And I saw, seeing those responses from them, like, again, they took the time to spend time to reach out to just us, just one family, this one student of their 40 students, to say that they hear us, they understand, giving us some advice, some options in some of the things we were saying that Jacob was having struggles with, and some good options on how to handle those. And so I really did appreciate that, and I highly recommend reaching out to your kids' teachers individually and sharing with them what's going on. But thank you for going through that, Jenny. I wanted to come back to what you had talked about before, about really sort of, and this is something we talked about with the teachers in those emails too. And I'm actually going to share with everybody an article from USA Today about this whole topic that also talks about this as well, but really taking the opportunity to cater the assignments and what they're doing to their own interests.
Mm-hmm.
And using that as an opportunity to learn. So I have a few different things to share with everybody. So we already sort of we had talked about the Google Slides or PowerPoint that Jacob created. He's a gigantic Star Wars fan, possibly even bigger than me, but I'm not sure about that.
For sure, bigger than you. And his knowledge, I think,
is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And we were, as just part of our sort of Netflix, Disney Plus watching, we were watching some of the movies, and he was inspired to create a PowerPoint presentation to help you with the Skywalker saga. He's like, you don't know enough, Mom, and I need to teach you, so I'm going to create a presentation. So he created 2 different slide decks talking about the Star Wars movies, and he did such a great job, and he was invested, and he was practicing his writing,
doing research, learning Google Slides.
Yes.
Yeah. And so it took us giving ourselves permission to step outside of the box.
Yes.
And journaling prompt. Like, one of the journaling prompts one day was to switch spots with someone that is famous that you really like. And he was being so literal, and he was like, but that person's dead. So if I switch spots with them right now, I'd be dead. I feel like he's a literal concrete thinker. And so at some point I decided to stop arguing with him about the sort of usefulness and reasoning behind that particular prompt. And I was like, just write about something. And so once I sort of gave myself permission to step outside of the box, and I think saying it out loud, sort of in email to the teachers, basically saying, like, I'm outside of the box. I'm not following this to the T. And I'm really struggling over here because of time. That sort of gave me permission to like really cater it to him. And I think we're going to have to check in on it at the end of every week, beginning of every week, and really sort of repulse check everything. With our oldest, I was really struggling sort of with he's older and he should be managing this on his own to a really great extent, because he's going into high school. He's going to be in all honors classes. He should be managing this. But all of the teachers sort of have different layouts on Google Classroom. So for me, I'm a visual person, and it wasn't until my sister showed me that there's a Google Classroom app, and she like walked me through it over a video, and I downloaded that on my phone. And so now I feel like, okay, I have better understanding. I have better control now. So it's about kind of finding a way that makes it work for you as a parent, you as a family, you as the children.
So when it comes to, adjusting those assignments to have it be based on their interest, I had a similar experience with Jacob. on the next day or whatever, there was it was another journaling or writing ELA thing. And it was these five words that you're supposed to incorporate into a short story, just these 5 words. And he was not engaged in that at all and wasn't interested in the words at all. So we took 4 of the 5 and switched them out with Star Wars terms. And then he did it.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. I mean, again, don't be afraid to do this because right now it's about engaging them. And there's no right or wrong, really, as long as you're doing the engagement, you're spending the time.
Well, there should be no right or wrong. I think it's going to depend district
It
to
depends on the
district and
right.
teacher to teacher and grade level. There should be no right or wrong, as long as you're kind of engaging them in something. And we don't want to make the mental health situation or the emotional situation for our kids, I mean collectively, like our kids,
Right.
any worse than it is, because they're grieving. This is a huge change for them. They've lost their normal. They may have parents who are now struggling financially, who are struggling with, sort of lack of communication or communication difficulties, like lots of stress. They're feeling lots of stress and they're living in a very stressful world.
Right.
We don't want this schooling piece to make it worse for them. We don't want them to lose skills, and maybe we could help them gain new skills educationally, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But really our goal is just maintain-ish and provide some sort of structure and place to sort of hold them mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
So it's not worth fighting. It's not worth arguing.
No.
And if one day we go to sit down at the table and it's just not working, we just need to be okay with it not being okay that day.
Well, I wanted to talk about a couple things that have turned into, they were like a hybrid sort of family fun, but also like good for enrichment and learning and whatnot. So we've been.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, Jacob in a little bit of Jackson, whenever we pull him out of his room and away from his Xbox, we've been doing, in addition to like family movie night or whatever, we've been doing like board games and different game type activities, including with different apps and websites that have like electronic games. And so one of the 2 of them that we've been using, we've used a couple times on my, I forget whose phone it was, my phone. We downloaded a charades game app, and they have lots of different categories, but including like
State capitals,
right? So, and the other different types of sort of more intellectual, like academic type categories, and not just like pop culture or whatever. But it's an opportunity to like really sort of use your brain, in addition to having fun. So we use a charades app, but we also, I gotta shout out Kahoot. This day and age, I'm sure people are more and more familiar with Kahoot. It's a online sort of community quiz thing. You can create games. A lot of teachers use it, businesses. I use it at work. But you can also just use it as people, as a family. And we were doing that last night, and we did a state capitals thing, and there's some other great categories on there that really forces you to use your brain. And so you can have this hybrid event that is both like learning and enrichment, but also fun, like family fun. So Kahoot and charades, we should definitely include some screenshots or links to those things for folks.
Yeah, and also, just fun board games. Like, I think we've tried a new board game every week, essentially, or some sort of new app game on our phone.
I like that Monopoly. I want to play that again.
Yeah, that was hard. Monopoly Cheaters, it's like goes against everything that I have.
I was boss at that.
Because you cheat. You're a liar. You're really good at that.
Oh, okay. That's a different episode. And lastly, I want to talk about the art activities that they've been doing.
I actually think that's what they were just doing, because we just had to pause to go collect a Easter gift at the end of the driveway. And when we left the studio, it was very clear that that's what they're doing together. They're both drawing something.
Yeah. And what's funny is the last school session, the 3 of us were at our one kitchen table with our laptops, and they got sort of towards the end of their school session, and they saved their art activities towards the end, both of them. And at one point I'm like, wait, where did they go? And I realized they had both left me because they needed more space.
That's what they've
at the
done
dining room
both
table.
days with me.
Yeah,
They've left the
yeah.
kitchen
They wanted
table
more
and gone to
space.
the dining room table, and then
Just the two by themselves.
Mhm. Yep.
Hanging out.
Yeah.
Drawing and creating art together, which is
Yeah.
really, really great.
So I guess we are at the place in our grieving process of what's going on, where we are starting to sort of adjust to the new world.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think
and
we're
start to thrive a little bit.
well,
well.
yeah, and starting to find some joy in that.
Right. I guess that's what I come to
Right,
mind.
like they're really enjoying. Like our youngest really wants to go on a walk with you and two of the dogs, because we've got 3 dogs. They can't
Yeah.
all walk together because the 2 girls are afraid of each other. So we have to sort of
They're getting
rotate
better and better,
the
though.
walk. I think when it's warmer, we can work on that again. We worked on that before I
Yeah.
think like in the summer and fall we worked on that.
Right. When nice weather. Yeah.
Nice weather, because it's cold. It's still too cold
And
for
we
me
have
to
a
be
fenced-in
outside.
backyard, so they don't have to. They don't have to go on walks to go to the bathroom and stuff. to get
Right, but the
exercise. They
boys
run
have
around
been
outside.
enjoying taking them on walks.
Well, this sort of leads me to one of my final points, which was wellness and fitness,
Mm-hmm.
because that's super important. Especially we have 2 athletes, but even if you don't have athletes,
Mm-hmm.
Kids should be getting out and getting active, and even
Well,
just taking
everybody
a-
should.
Everybody should, even just taking a simple walk.
Uh-huh.
That's great, and you definitely try to incorporate that. I'm lucky that they like playing basketball with me, so that's been a lot of fun.
Right.
But before we end, I wanted to share some highlights from this USA Today article. Do you mind, Jenny? Do you have anything else before I do that?
No, I have no idea what your article is going to say, so
this
I'm excited.
is how to homeschool coronavirus quarantine. How to homeschool ideas from homeschooling parents.
Okay.
So USA Today interviewed a few people that actually do homeschool outside of a quarantine. And there's a lot of great information in the article. So I will share a link to this article in the show notes. But one of the things I want to point out was they talked to this Vanderbilt professor of psychology and human development named Bethany Riddle Johnson, who says parents can support kids by following their interests, getting them to explain things to them. But we don't have to replace our kids' teachers, because our teachers are professionals, so it'll be okay. And most of us did not go to school for this. We're not professional teachers, and so we always need to remember that.
Right.
The most important thing for parents to remember for parents during school closures is not to be too harsh on themselves. And that's what, again, Professor Riddle Johnson had said in this article. They also interviewed a homeschooling parent by the name of Kelly Brockman, who says, "I think it's important to keep your brains and keep their brains and their bodies going." And that's the point, right? It's not so much about if you're able to. It's not so much about the right and the wrong and the grades and doing the assignments, 100% as written or whatnot, but it's really just about getting their brains going, getting their bodies going, like doing some of the things that you and I were talking about, like the Kahoot and charades, and changing their assignments to focus on some of their own interest, and then just getting their bodies going, getting outside, running around a little bit, which is super important. So I will put a link to that article in the show notes, like I had said. So that was USA Today article, how to homeschool, ideas from parents who are homeschoolers. All right, Jenny, I think that's just about the end of our time. Do you have anything else on this episode? Hang in there, is what I want to say to folks.
I wish I could find the quote that it's just hard. I guess we all have to be kind of easy on ourselves and not compare ourselves. So I guess I do have something to add.
I do have one more thing to add.
Because some kids are comparing with each other. Like, my mom says that we have to do this, and so your mom should be telling you the same thing. And my dad is saying that this is required by this certain date. And so I got a panicked text, because kids communicate by text, at like 11:30 one night this week. Like, so-and-so said that we're supposed to be doing blah, blah, blah. And I said, here's I screenshotted the actual email. Here's the actual email, what it says. You have to remember that every family is different and every family has a different situation. So you need to just focus on yourself, and your friends need to focus on themselves too. Like, I get it. This is hard for everybody, but so we can't really compare ourselves to each other, right? What's working for our family might not work for another family. And there are lots of other families that are able to do more than what we're able to do right now. And what we're able to do right now it is probably going to be very different than what we're able to do in 3 weeks. And all of that is okay. So don't compare yourself with the Joneses, and don't worry about the Joneses comparing themselves to you either.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like we're all kind of in this, but we've all got to sort of figure out what works best for each of us individually.
Absolutely. I wanted to share just a little bit of brevity. I want first shout out to all of those teachers, but also those school administrators all throughout the country, having creative ways to connect with people and engage with people on social media. We have very active administration on Twitter as well as Facebook, and I think that having a connection to those folks that you don't normally see, actually, you probably see them more now, their faces more now than you do in normal life. Which I think has been really good to see. But I saw something funny. It was kids, 3 different kids were holding up signs. And it was a posed picture, and each of the signs formed to say, "You think you have it bad? We're quarantined with the principal."
Right.
So you know what? It's funny, but just as a reminder, teachers and administrators, a lot of them are parents too.
Yep.
And they're in this with you.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. And this is hard. This is not easy.
Right.
It's a challenge. There's emotional pieces that come along with it. So I guess the main takeaway is like, don't stress yourself out about this.
Yeah.
Do what you can. And if what you can do is just a tiny little bit, that's okay. Like if all you can do is just read to your kids or have them read.
Yeah.
Great. Like that, we've got to be really kind of realistic here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Jenny. I think that's the end of our episode. Should we close this one out?
Yes. I think I have a date to go to. I hope the commute's not too long.
So more to come on episode 64 about our date. Before we close out this episode, I just want to read an iTunes review. So don't forget to submit your iTunes reviews, and you will have them read over the air. Rate and review us, and don't forget to invite a friend to rate and review us. Share a link with a friend about Changing Perspectives if you're interested to have them listen. All about growing our audience right now and having a big community that we can share with. But I wanted to read this. This is from Kelly. The title of this review is Thought-Provoking. Great conversations. Feels like I'm sitting around the kitchen table with Jenni and Josh. Thoughtful and funny, even when talking about tough topics. So thank you, Kelly, for that great review. It's very funny because when we first started this, one of the first places that we recorded was actually at our kitchen table.
Mm-hmm.
It's
That's
very
right.
cavernous out there, though, so the audio wasn't perfect. But that is funny. One of our first places when Changing Perspectives was born, so to speak. All right, everybody. Well, that is going to do it for today. Thank you so much for listening. For today's show notes links, you can check out that USA Today article. I'm going to post that right in the show notes. Please follow us on Facebook at Changing Perspectives Podcast and on Instagram at Changing Perspectives Blog. You can send us an email to changingpodcast@gmail.com. You can also visit our website by going to changingperspectivesblog.com. And while you're there, don't forget to visit the shop to check out all of that Changing Perspectives merchandise. Go ahead and subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode, and we will see you next time. Say bye, Jenny.
Bye, Jenny.
The Changing Perspectives podcast is produced, recorded, and edited by Dizzy Studios. Please visit Dizzy Studios on Facebook, facebook.com/DizzyBird Studios.